From the Associated Press, Newsom issues executive order for removal of homeless encampments in California. And they absolutely love these executive orders because with a single stroke of a pen, they can override things that people don't like. Or in this case, he could say, well, I stood up and I took charge and I cleaned up the streets. But why right now? We all remember when you pretended to clean up a couple city blocks of San Francisco to make way for the dictator of China. But are you maybe positioning yourself for something else and you don't want this to be used against you? Even though it obviously will be because you let this problem fester for decades and you are likely benefiting from it. And I mean, there's a laundry list of other things, right? Like think about the minimum wage, think about the crime businesses are fleeing. All of that stuff is going to be lobbed at you. And unfortunately, unfortunately for you, we are no longer in the days of a handful of 3-letter media agencies that will report whatever you tell them to, because we can all see it at this point.
Nigga, did you know that I can see you?
My name's Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm absolutely begging you.
I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
It would help me a lot and cost you nothing. But if you wanted to help me even more and spend some money, you would buy my book, New York City 2020, Gotham Unglued, on Amazon.com. That link will be in the description. But they say, California Governor Scumbag Greaseball Bang Your Wife Gavin Newsom issued an executive order to direct state agencies on how to remove homeless encampments. Oh, yeah. I'm sure Gavin Newsom knows exactly how to remove a homeless encampment. You should tell them to just do it. Don't pretend you're going to give them directions because he obviously has no idea. A month after Supreme Court ruling allowing cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public spaces. And that's also an excuse they're going to use. Well, the Supreme Court said we couldn't clean up. We were waiting for the guys in robes to tell us that we should clean up the streets. Otherwise, we would have done it a long time ago. Newsom's order is aimed at the thousands of tents and makeshift shelters across the state that line freeways, clutter shopping centers, parking lots, and fill city parks. I mean, think about the Tenderloin, where there's literally just tents on the sidewalk. We're not talking about a parking lot. We're not talking about the highway. Literally just the sidewalk where people, if heaven forbid, a regular tax-paying San Franciscan walks down these streets, they have to dodge needles and poop and tents, right? So the highway, I mean, that's disgusting and dangerous also. But San Francisco is absolutely terrible. But now, Governor Scumbag Greaseball Bang Your Wife Gavin Newsom is going to clean it all up. The order makes clear that the decision to remove the encampments remains in local hands. It comes after a decision by the Supreme Court earlier this summer allowing cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public spaces. The case was the most significant on the issue to come before the high court in decades and comes as cities across the country have wrestled with the politically complicated issue on how to deal with a rising number of people without a permanent place to live and public frustration over related health and safety issues. Yeah, so they want to pretend it's complicated when it's really not, but this is a perfect way to usher in communism with all that destruction, right? Oh, we just can't do anything because the Supreme Court said we couldn't, even though we didn't really ask them, even though you could. I'm almost certain that if people in California decided, hey, we don't want this anymore, the cleanup crew would come and the bums are going to start filing lawsuits and take it all the way up to the Supreme Court to leave their tent on the sidewalk, right? It's really not that complicated. But the point, as far as the communism is concerned, they obviously want people to be, dependent on the government. Like they want nothing more than that. So, okay, that aside. Newsom's administration wrote in support of cities' argument that previous rulings included one that barred San Francisco from clearing encampments until more shelter beds were available, which I guess had prevented the state from solving a critical problem. And there you go, once again. Until the government provides more free housing for the junkies, we can't clean this stuff up. And do you think I don't know what they're going to do, but the people that live on the streets who are largely strung out on dope, are they going to be shoved in the houses and allowed to use dope in there? on the taxpayer dime? Or are they going to be told you have to stop using dope to get in there? It's not going to work. And they're pretending, well, we couldn't do anything because the Supreme Court said we couldn't. And we couldn't do anything because the government didn't create more housing. Meanwhile, they want that money so they can build this shoddy, disgusting housing and then filter the rest of the money through the pockets of bureaucrats all over the place. There are simply no more excuses. It's time for everyone to do their part, Newsom said in a statement. Oh, groundbreaking stuff. Do your part. Pay your fair share, Jack.
Pay your fair share.
While Newsom cannot order local authorities to act, his administration can apply pressure by withholding money for counties and cities. California is home to roughly 1/3 of the nation's population of homeless people, a problem that has dogged Newsom since he took office. Newsom touted that his administration has spent roughly $24 billion aimed at cleaning up streets and housing people, but acknowledged the stubbornness of the issue. Yeah, and not really accounting for the $24 billion, but I guess that's a different story. Newsom's administration has also come under fire recently after a state audit found that the state didn't consistently track, here we are, whether the huge outlay of public money actually improved the situation. And this just shouldn't be surprising to anyone. There was just a story out of San Francisco about the money that was supposed to quote unquote help the black community just couldn't be accounted for, and the $12 million that the state earmarked for reparations, but Newsom wouldn't detail what the money was being spent on, right? And like I said, are you going to buy basketballs? You're going to buy hot sauce? You're going to buy Air Jordans? What the hell are you guys talking about? It's all so painfully obvious at this point that if Newsom, even as he does this, which I'm not totally against, he should have done this years ago, shouldn't have let it got this bad. But besides that, if Newsom gets anywhere near the levers of federal power, there's got to be a reckoning, right? Same thing with Kamala Harris. We can see it, right? All the gas, it's all collapsed. All the gaslighting, all the manipulation, the spin cycle, that's all gone. You guys tried everything, literally up to trying to assassinate Donald Trump, which I'm sure was just a lone wolf and it wasn't a coordinated effort at all, right? You tried everything. It's not happening anymore. Go back to the dungeon for the millionth time and come up with an idea that people despise a little bit less than what you're doing now. Newsom has worked hard to address the issue. No, he hasn't. Newsom has worked hard, right? While he was at the French Laundry, while he was buying hair gel, he was working hard. Absolutely not. This man is just, he looks like a politician. He looks like a politician from the 90s, so they quote unquote vote for him. But I highly doubt he's worked hard at all. He threw all of his political weight behind a ballot measure earlier this year to allow the state to borrow nearly $6.4 billion to build 4,350 housing units, which passed with a razor-thin margin. Yeah, I'm sure that passed with a razor-thin margin, and there was no shenanigans going on there at all.
Yeah, Mike and Jared, many wondering tonight, so was it a voter fraud scheme or something else? Investigators are now trying to determine why it is that more than 300 recall ballots were found inside a man's car at this 7-Eleven in Torrance. More than 300 mail-in ballots for the governor's recall race were found inside a car parked at this Torrance 7-Eleven with a man sleeping inside of it.
And once again, these new houses that you're building, you're just going to open them up and put the junkies in there? Or is there going to be a little bit of a process to make sure that these dope fiends, largely dope fiends, not all, but most.
Not all, but most.
Are going to live in these houses. It's not that easy. And if you do let the dope fiends live in there, it is going to become a dilapidated shanty town in absolutely no time. Oh, and here we go. From, the Associated Press wants to blame the Republicans. The order comes as Republicans have stepped up their criticisms of California and its homelessness crisis as Vice President Kamala Harris, a former California District Attorney General, and Senator, launches her presidential campaign. Harris into the right. Yeah, who cares about Harris, right? We understand. That's the point. It's like we can all see it, right? We all know now. You try. The last resort failed, which I'm sure you guys didn't have anything to do with. But now, just start over. You're gonna save yourself some time just by starting over, and just tell them Tell the people, the cronies that you've brainwashed, the new talking point, and they're going to go along with it. We've already seen how for whatever reason, there's a large contingent of people who are pretending to get behind Kamala Harris. So just say that, hey, and they're going to be okay with it. You have trained them. You have trained them very well. They're going to be okay with the idea that you say, hey, this didn't really work out how we wanted it to, so we're going to come up with a new plan. But you're just pretending that, oh, Gavin Newsom, he's so strong and brave, he's cleaning up the streets now. Or he's claiming that he's issuing an executive order. It's all completely despicable. The timing of the executive order is curious, said California political analyst Brian Sobel, but he doubts Newsom's move would have much impact on the Harris campaign. Harris's problem isn't in California. California is a done deal, he said. Where she needs to do well on issues like this are in swing states. Rather, the order is a logical step for Newsom, who called himself the state's homeless czar. Oh, like Kamala Harris was the border czar, and we could run the clips. We've all seen when she was the border czar, but now they're claiming that she's not.
Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. She was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
And made homelessness a signature policy issue the last few years, said Wesley Hussey, a political science professor at California State University, Sacramento. And we all remember way back in the day when scumbag greaseball bang your wife Governor Gavin Newsom said, well, we're going to fix homelessness in 10 years.
We better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco.
Of course, that came and went. I don't think it's being motivated by the presidential race as much. It is definitely something that Newsom cared a lot of. Oh, this guy's going to bat for Newsom? Oh, it has nothing to do with the presidential race. He just really right now and at 0 hour wants to clean up the state. Oh, my word. If you're going to put it in the political context of the election, this isn't going to magically fix the problem. Well, obviously it's not going to fix the problem, but he's trying to help Kamala, I guess, and maybe make a lane for himself as vice president or whatever. But this guy with this political science professor is pretending it has nothing to... Okay, it's not being motivated by the presidential race. Give me a break, bro. Newsom's decision have garnered praises from local elected officials and business groups who said they were left with no options. And this is just another piece of the puzzle as to why. I mean, there's so many reasons, whether it's the lockdown, whether it's the break-ins, the smash and grabs, but the homeless people running roughshod over business owners is just another reason why you are not able to run a business in California. If you don't get broken into once a week, then the homeless people are going to make sure that your place of business is an absolute eyesore. But don't worry, scumbag greaseball bang your wife Governor Gavin Newsom is here to fix it.